Not. Dennis Biggerstaff realises what's going on and closes the door, fighting back there at Paddock Bend. Off the shale, back onto the tarmac. In fourth place is John Cross. If you saw the Croft round of the championship, you'll remember his rather controversial coming together with John Moloney. And John Cross here keeping his nose clean. Understeer, then oversteer for Dennis Biggerstaff. And now that the two Metros are battling amongst themselves, it's enabling the race leader Dermot Carnegie to pull away in a rather flat-sounding car there. I reckon that was Biggerstaff, and he loses out to Norman Kittle, who charges up the inside. Once through, he's pulling away, and oh dear, Phil Collins has gone up in smoke. It is not another day in paradise for Phil Collins. Now, the fight for second has become the fight for third. Biggerstaff has lost second place. He's dropped right back into the clutches of John Cross, who rockets up the inside. Is he going to go through? Well, Biggerstaff tries to fend him off, but John Cross in the turbocharged four-wheel drive Ford Fiesta goes through. Meantime, Dermot Carnegie accelerates back onto the tarmac to take the checkered flag and victory in the first round of heats for Division 1. Norman Kittle comes home second, John Cross third, and Dennis Biggerstaff in fourth.
Yeah, we've got a ventilated block, I'm afraid. But we all think it started with an oil problem. Somewhere the oil's gone out of the engine, and then he's let a conrod go. Because they're not so good without the oil in these engines. So now, it's history.
You're looking at the championship leader, Will Gollop, Whitstable Will, Britain's best rallycrosser. Ready for his first race of the day. Alongside him, the Norwegian Martin Iversen and John Moloney, the Honda dealer, both of them in Ford Escorts. The lights go green. Good start by Gollop. Lousy start by Martin Iversen. Very sluggish indeed off the line. Steve Mundy goes past him in the blue Fiesta Turbo, and Martin Iversen unable to respond as they go onto the loose at Chessons Drift. Will Gollop, meantime, leads. Moloney is in second place. Will Gollop, then, the man to beat in this heat, and busy at work in the car, making his way now out of Paddock Bend, back onto the tarmac, then approaching Chessons Drift, and Martin Iversen has got real problems. That car has slowed right down, and Will Gollop is on target not only for a win, but also the fastest time in this first round of heats. Iversen grinds to a halt, and Will Gollop ends 7.2 seconds quicker than anybody else in his class. Back on board with Tiff Needell for the second round of qualifying heats. We're in Division 4, Needell's on the front row, and he's not that quick off the line. Paul Coney from the middle of the front row made the best start. His green and pink Nova leads as they plunge onto the loose, and Tiff Needell looks like a very committed man, doesn't he? Head down, charging on as they head from the loose to the tarmac. Paul Coney leads, and there is Tiff Needell for Duckham's liveried Nova in third place. Mike Seller there in the multicoloured Ford Fiesta going through. Remember, he spun in his first qualifying heat, and Tiff Needell had a fairly torrid time earlier on. He had to battle his way up through the field. Well, even from a front row starting position, he's got work to do, and there, trying to go around the outside of Gordon Rogers. It didn't work at the hairpin. Will it work in a straight line? Paul Coney's pulling away, remember, up front. Needell with a wiper going. He's on the outside of Gordon Rogers, who locks up, coming into Paddock Bend. Nova's first, second, and third. This is Needell at work in the car. Bump, 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 all over the shale there. Back on the power, back on the tarmac. Fiddling with the switch to keep the wiper on, and now Tiff Needell heads down to the loose at Chessons Drift. Down through the gears, keeping the car under control. Now let's see how close he is to Gordon Rogers. He's losing a great deal of time to the Nova. He's being caught as well by Dave Ward in the Metro. Back onto the tarmac, Needell gets rather crossed up there, and Dave Ward with the ubiquitous Metro is closing and closing fast. A very wide approach there as they head up the hill. Meantime, a rather sideways Paul Coney makes his way now through that little chicane. Lots of understeer there, back on the power, fighting for control. But it's a very impressive drive this from Paul Coney. No one around him to battle against. Now he's got to worry about the clock. It's the points scored from quick times in the heats that determine which final you go into. They need to be in the A final. Has Paul Coney done enough? Across the line he goes, victory in his second heat with, coming home in second place, Gordon Rogers. Tiff Needell hangs on for third, and Dave Ward takes fourth. And you're not going to beat me again, thinks Tiff Needell to the two in front of him. And there you are, he makes his thoughts abundantly clear as he heads back to the paddock. We stay with Division 4. Nearest ours is Graham Claxton, but look out for John Haffey starting at the back of the grid. Haffey was very, very impressive in his first qualifying run. He leads the class in the championship, and already he's rocketing his way up through the field. The old-style Nova ahead of the Corsa in the hands there of Mark Dickens, which runs rather wide, but Graham Claxton in 4.47 is the man up front. From the back of the grid, John Haffey is already in third place as they make their way from loose to tarmac on this, the opening lap hard on the brakes. Through the Devil's Elbow. Up now towards the hairpin at the top of Hairy Hill. And John Haffey is on the move. And Graham Claxton loses out altogether. They go either side of him there. Under braking for the hairpin. Darren Taylor goes through into the lead in the blue Nova. John Haffey on the outside of Graham Claxton there. He's up into second place now. Now, will he get the lead as they come down the hill? The answer is no. Darren Taylor hangs on to it. John Haffey understeering and then oversteering his way through the corner. He's looking for a way pass as they head back to the tarmac. Darren Taylor versus John Haffey. The cars make their way now once more onto the loose at Chesson's Drift, and Graham Claxton is fighting back. Now that's the last thing that John Haffey really wants to have to worry about. He'd rather sort out Darren Taylor ahead of him rather than have to fret about what's going on behind. He's shaken off Graham Claxton now, so once again he can concentrate on attacking Darren Taylor. They make their way out of the Devil's Elbow, up Hairy Hill now towards the hairpin at the top, and Darren Taylor, look, is driving very defensively, hugging the inside and the middle of the road there to make sure Haffey will have to go the long way round him. Paul Coney's heat-winning time from earlier on was 3 minutes 8.60 seconds, and as John Haffey dives through into the lead, that is his target. He's got to be quicker than 3 minutes 8.6 seconds in order to get maximum points from this round of qualifying heats, and there, right up onto two wheels, bouncing through Paddock Bend. You can see just what happens when you run wide. The clock ticking away then for John Haffey. Locked a rear wheel there, corrects it, gets back on the power as they come towards the tarmac once again. Is this going to be a quicker run than that of Paul Coney? We'll see in a moment. Up towards the line, there's the checkered flag. It's a 3 minute 9.30 seconds. Haffey not as quick as Paul Coney. He lost too much time trying to battle his way through to the lead. The Euro 2000 cars in Division 6 with the Division 3 Escort Mark IV of Bill Harbour in there as well. The local man from Tunbridge Wells slots into second place as the cars make their way onto the loose at Chesson's Drift for the first time. Roger Binion at the back of the field there in the Montego, but the cars making their way for the first time onto the tarmac that takes them down the Dover slope. And up front it's Richard Moroney, the Battersea man in the Ford Escort. He runs out wide though, and Bill Harbour comes through to take over the lead. And look out there for the Opel Corsa in the hands of the Belgian driver Patrick van Mechelen. He is trying to squeeze up on the outside of Richard Moroney as they head to the top of the hill. Is he going to be able to do it? Well, it's the wrong line there, unless he can get a quicker, tighter exit coming out of the corner. Moroney gets sideways, and Bill Harbour had a good lead. He slowed right down. Harbour slows right down, and you could see the way that Moroney had to jink out there to avoid hitting him. New race leader, though, is Patrick van Mechelen as they make their way through Paddock Bend for the first time. He runs a little bit wide. The car hops into the air. He's still twitching on and off the lock to regain control, which he's done now. Through comes the fight for second place there. Richard Moroney fending off 677 Ken Lane. The 2-litre Escorts chasing on after the 2-litre Opel Corsa. This the equivalent, in effect, of Formula 2 rallying. Two-wheel drive, nothing bigger than 2-litre, and it's a 2-litre unit under the bonnet of Patrick van Mechelen's Opel Corsa. And a very competitive proposition it is proving to be. The two Escorts there still squabbling over second place. Richard Moroney looking as though he has the upper hand at the moment, and Ken Lane in third. Up Hairy Hill, it's getting a bit gloomy at Lydden now. The fog's coming down and visibility up there is nowhere near as good as it was earlier on in the day. And that's Van Mechelen. He slowed right down, the second race leader suffering at the top of the hill. That's by the altitude. First it was Bill Harbour, now it's Patrick van Mechelen, and he has slowed right down. He is effectively out of the race, therefore. Richard Moroney takes over the leadership of this heat with Ken Lane right there behind him. Back onto the loose, a real test this for the driver, constantly going from one sort of surface to another, and Ken Lane on the loose is bringing that gap down. Has he got enough time left, however, in which to find a way past the race leader, Richard Moroney? They're back on the tarmac, they're back on the power, they accelerate now across the line to go onto their last lap. Well, if a leader has trouble in this heat, tradition has dictated it's been at the top of the hill, and that is where Richard Moroney, the race leader, is going to now. Into the gloom, into the hairpin. Swing it right. Ken Lane using more of the road there, looking for a gap, looking for a quicker run out of the corner. Moroney with 3 lengths between himself and Ken Lane. Looks as though he might be able to hang on to it, but Lane is very, very good under braking. Look, that gap virtually non-existent now as they come through the loose, and that's a result of Lane being brilliant under braking. Moroney, however, driving a defensive race, doing just enough to keep Ken Lane's Escort at bay. They've only got the run now, back onto the tarmac and then down the hill towards the checkered flag to go. And it looks as though Richard Moroney will be able to hang on to win this heat. They twitch their way back onto the tarmac, and Richard Moloney comes through for victory with Ken Lane chasing him home in second place. The Euro 2000 class getting better and better every time we see it, but the weather here at Lydden is getting worse and worse. Jos Kuypers doesn't care. He is ensconced in the Mitsubishi, ready for his second qualifying run of the day. He goes, nobody else follows him. Get back, says the marshal. We'll have another go at this. A rather ambitious Jos Kuypers. The problem is, if you make a full start, you get put to the back of the grid, not to your original grid position. So Kuypers was on the front row, now he's at the back. Tony Bell in the Toyota makes the best start, lonely on the front row, and this is Jos Kuypers. He's passed one, he's passed two. That was John Samson's TR7 and Helmut Holfeld's Subaru Impreza he'd got past. Now, he's on the loose at Chesson's Drift. His next target is going to be Tony Bell. Say one thing for Kuypers, he enjoys his Rallycross look, a phase of concentration, but a big grin on his face nonetheless, and through he goes. Bell ran wide, and Jos Kuypers slingshots through. 3 Japanese cars in the top 3. The Mitsubishi leads the Toyota, leads the Subaru. Jos Kuypers, we've already said he's been very successful in Europe, and he's proving why here in Britain. It's great to see the European drivers coming over into this championship. We can just about see him now at the top of the hill through the gloom. The brake lights stab on, going into the hairpin. He's back on the power, now running very, very wide. All 4 wheels off the road, on the grass. Doesn't slow him at all. Tony Bell unable to profit from that little error by Jos Kuypers. On the loose, and Bell really clobbers the back there, gets up onto 2 wheels. Now let's hope that's not done the suspension or the tracking any harm, because if it has, that car's going to be a real handful. Nostalgia there in the hands of John Samson, the TR7. Richard Paynton from Torquay used to race one of those many, many years ago. Well, the man from Devon, John Samson, with his TR7, reminding us of what we used to see in Rallycross. Meantime, Jos Kuypers has taken the checkered flag and a heat win, despite that full start and a back row starting position. Yeah, he says, I've done it. We're back to Division 1. Martin Iversen on the back row of the grid with Dennis Biggerstaff as the lights go green. And once again, Iversen is not that quick off the line. Dennis Biggerstaff with that Rally engine 6R4 makes a fairly slow getaway. And this is Honda dealer John Moloney at the wheel of his Escort Cosworth. And how's that for a face of intense concentration? Hunched over the wheel, elbowing his way through into the lead. And John Moloney, who was incredibly sanguine about things at Croft when he was taken out by John Cross and wasn't allowed to take the restart of the A final, is in the lead of this qualifying heat and absolutely storming away from the rest of them. Up to the top of the hill, through that right-hand hairpin, and then back on the power, heading down towards Paddock Bend. And I'm afraid to say, the fog is getting worse. It really is closing in here at Lydden. We've still got the final races in this second round of heats to go, then the finals and the all-important super final. Let's hope we're going to be all right for time and for the weather conditions, as there through the cones goes Lawrence Gibson in the 6R4. Not to be confused with Rob Gibson, who also has a 6R4, and let's hope we see Rob Gibson out before long. I'm surprised we haven't already. Now, Dennis Biggerstaff there tried to take advantage of Gibson's drama. He went too wide and wasn't able to benefit. Meantime, it is still John Moloney in the lead. Lawrence Gibson running a little bit wide going into Devil's Elbow, but Dennis Biggerstaff still hasn't found a way past him. Meantime, the very close to the wheel position there of John Moloney. You can see how close he sits to it, but it's an effective one nonetheless, because he is the race leader. He's diving down the hill. He will swing right through Paddock Bend, off onto the loose, and oh dear, Gibson has got a problem this time. The wheels are pointing at one another, and they're not saying hello. The only place he's going to go now is off the circuit and then back to the paddock. A suspension problem there for Lawrence Gibson. The front right suspension has broken. And the marshal says, I'd park here, son, if I were you. Now, what has happened to John Moloney's lead? Dennis Biggerstaff much, much closer. Marketars clipped by John Moloney. The checkered flag waves through the gloom. And John Moloney wins. Dennis Biggerstaff second. And John Moloney is very happy with that result. Lawrence Gibson is rather less impressed. He's got a 6R4 now that handles like nothing on earth. Will Gollop at the back of the grid for his second qualifying race. He was fastest in the first round of heats. If he can do it in the second, he'll be on pole position for the final. Norman Kittle and John Cross on the front row of the grid. Good start by Kittle, sluggish start by Cross, and Will Gollop is making a storming start. So too is Dermot Carnegie. in the Carlos Sainz lookalike escort, but Cross and Gollop both go very, very wide indeed. And through the gloom, side by side, come Kittel and Carnegie on to the tarmac now. Will Gollop is third, fourth is John Cross, who clips the marker tyres. The weather is getting worse, but the action is getting better. Will Gollop third, and really for the first time this year, we're going to have to see Will Gollop work for it. Up Hairy Hill, through the gloom, hard on the brake, down, down, down through the gears. Swing, sharp right. Back on the power. Down the hill goes Gollop. He's looking at the back of Dermot Carnegie's Escort, and Carnegie is looking at the back of Norman Kittle's Metro 6R4. Now, remember, John Moloney won the first heat for the Division 1 cars, and bang, there, Gollop touches the tail of Carnegie. He puts all four wheels behind the marker cones. That normally incurs a penalty. But in order to take pole position for the final, they've got to go quicker than 2 minutes 50, which was the time of John Moloney. Here they come, back onto the tarmac. Dermot Carnegie clips the marker tyres. John Cross goes through, and Will Gollop's car sounds rather flat. He's dropped back into fourth place now behind the Fiesta Turbo, which runs wide at the Devil's Elbow. Will Gollop comes back at him, up into third place. Now, was it the Fiesta or was it the Peugeot that sounded flat? We'll have to listen in a moment. Gollop's car seems to be going all right, doesn't it? It might well, therefore, be John Cross's Fiesta that's in trouble. Norman Kittle leads, Dermot Carnegie second, Gollop is still third, and Kittle once again using all of the road at the chicane up onto the curve, very, very sideways, and so too is Gollop. Dermot Carnegie now trying to pick his spot to find a way through, but they're all concerned now with the gloom. It is very, very foggy here at Lydden. Tyre in the middle of the road, wow, up into the air it goes. Carnegie clips it, and now smoke comes from the back of Norman Kittle's Metro 6R4. I suspect that is bodywork fouling against a tyre. On board with Will Gollop, he's doing his utmost to close the gap between himself and the two ahead, and I reckon he's doing it because they're battling amongst themselves now and holding one another up. Down the hill they go. The gap coming down between the top two, and Gollop right with them as they appear once more through the gloom. Out of the chicane, avoid the tyre, they manage to do so. Now they head for the final time onto the dirt at Chesson's Drift. The fog is getting worse, the smoke from the back of Norman Kittle's car is getting worse. Remember, the time to beat in this second round of heats is that of John Moloney, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Kittle wins, the time 2:47. He goes quickest in this second round of heats.
I think it's just a tad foggy, only just. We really can't see up to the next marshal's posts, and unless the marshals can see between each other's posts, then it's impossible to race like that.
The outcome then, no more racing. And remember that the super final is all important for the overall championship positions. Points need to be awarded, so what the organisers have done is to take the fastest 10 times throughout the day and make that the super final grid order, and then award points accordingly